Okay, sorry for the confusion. Since Trupti, I'm recording it, so am I audible to everyone, Trupti?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, I think most of the participants are here again. There was some nine, I think we have now. Trupti, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So let's continue. Sorry. So as I said, like, your H1, between the exempt and the cap exempt and the non-cap exempt. Now, in terms of O1 visa, so this is a very tricky one. Not many people would know this, and not many people would want to sponsor this O1 visa because this is for individuals with extraordinary ability or achievement. This was mostly commonly used to sponsor television personalities and movie personalities. But at times, they also use to sponsor candidates who have extraordinary ability in science. So pretty much a prerequisite is a PhD, and most companies would go for O1 only if they are not able to file your H1 for whatever the reason. Like, they tried 3 times or 4 times for you. You were unlucky that you couldn't get through the lottery system, then they might sponsor your O1 visas. The requirement in terms of like what documents you need for O1 is pretty much what you need for your green card. So it's a very highly documented process, unlike your H1. You have to get recommendation letters, you should have journal published, articles, citations, etc. The good thing about O1 is, again, it is not like H1B in terms of cap H1Bs where you have limited numbers and when you can apply and when you have to start working. O1 can be applied anytime. There's absolutely no kind of like limitations. It can be sponsored any time of the year also, and they can sponsor you today. If it's approved tomorrow, you can start working tomorrow on O1. That's how good the O1 visas are. But unfortunately, it's very hard to for the companies to sponsor. It costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. So, being a student to U.S. citizen, I know this. To be very honest, this kind of path is also like what you say is like, oh, there's so many arrows. How can I move from one to here? That's exactly how it is, and unfortunately. So, you're a graduate student somewhere here right now. After you graduate, you can get your OPT and, you're still on F1, find a job with a company. Eventually, they will apply for an H1B. And then once you're on H1B, you can go get your permanent residency. Or if you're really good, when you're a student, you can directly go and apply and get your permanent residency too. There's no wait. There's nothing like you have to go follow OPT H1B or J1 H1B permanent residency, nothing like that. You can apply for a green card anytime of the year, anytime during your graduate studies as well. There is nobody is going to stop you. So there are many ways. Like, for example, I have taken a very, very different way. I went to OPT and then I went outside the country. Then I came back to country on J1. Now I'm on H1B and now I'm going to green card. So I have pretty much gone to all corners of this graph. Uh, Dr. Kotbagi here was like, she went to J1 and then she went to H1B, then she went to permanent residency. So as I said, like, there is no one way or this is the right way. There is multiple ways. So the first thing is, to make sure that you can live in this country and continue working. So whatever it takes, follow that. And your green card should also, kind of run parallelly along with all the other things that you're talking about. Um, and once you get your green card, that's pretty much it. Then you are going to be a naturalized citizen of the US eventually. So that's just wanted to show you, like, how complicated it can be and how many ways you have. And now many of you might have a question: why do I need a green card? Is it really necessary when I have an H1 and I'm absolutely fine working on H1? Well, it depends on most of you. It will allow you to work for anyone in the US for any number of hours and multiple jobs. So, for example, you might have a day job and then you think like, oh, I want to drive Uber because I'm sitting at home doing nothing. Yeah, you can do it. But when you're on an H1 or a O1, J1, or even on F1, you can't do that. Your spouse can start working anywhere they want. They will not have any restrictions. Even your kids will be eligible for most of the federal loans. You will be eligible for federal loans. Um, Finding a job will be much easier for you because there's no visa sponsorship. If there's one thing that I've learned in the last 14, 15 years of my stay here is that there were lots of companies who wanted to hire, but unfortunately they were not allowed to, or they didn't have the resource to sponsor. So that's where it comes and gets stuck. So if you don't have a green card, no, we can't hire you. That's pretty much what they say. Some jobs, particularly if you're going to work with like biotech or aerospace, they have like a prerequisite that you have to be at least a U.S. permanent resident before you can even apply for that. Companies like Boeing, SpaceX, Blue Origin, they want you to, because of the ITAR restrictions, they would like you to be a permanent resident. Uh, and of course, eventually, if you want to be a US citizen, you have to go through, you have to get your green card, and then you can apply for naturalization to be a citizen of the US. And with the green card, it also gives you the ability to travel in and out of the US as many times as you want. And, you don't have to go and get your visa stamped anytime. So a green card is pretty much you're a permanent resident, have your Indian passport, show your green card, enter, start working. Nobody's going to ask you anything. Green card also gives you the ability to travel to Canada and Mexico without visa, so you don't have to get their country's visa. If you can drive up to Canada with your Indian passport and green card, they will allow you to travel in Canada and live in Canada for a certain number of days. And there are also a bunch of other small islands closer to the U.S. In Atlantic, I mean, in Pacific and Atlantic, and Gulf of Mexico, where you can go without any visas if you have a green card. Let's just have a glimpse. So who issues this green card? So it's a Department of State, it's a part of the federal system which provides the green card to eligible individuals and families. Are there unlimited number of green cards? Unfortunately, the number of green cards are limited. So there is, in every fiscal year, the Congress has made a law that only certain number of green cards can be issued for employment-based and family-based in a particular year. Are there any exceptions for this? Yes. If you are going to get married to a US citizen, then, or if you're going to be adopted by an US citizen, then you don't have, there is no limitations. So they don't have absolute limitations and when can they, sponsor and everything. Other things to know about green card are given to individual based on country of birth and not based on country of citizenship. This is something that you have to understand, and why I would, eventually we'll discuss about that. Green card process is complex. I don't want to give you a very green or pink pitch and say, hey, this is easy, don't worry about it. No, it is complex process. It's requires a rigorous documentation. Looking for your birth certificate. I don't know how many of you have even seen your birth certificate or how many of you have birth certificates. Especially for people who are born in India, we don't have birth certificates. Or if you have a birth certificate, your name is not there. It'll be like a boy or a girl. And all these things, you have to start working on it right now because those are time consuming.
Also, the language of the birth certificate.
Birth certificate, yes. Some of your birth certificates might be like, in your local language. And if there's no English translations, then you have to start working on it. So documentation is very, very, very important. It also costs you money. It can go up to like $8,000, $8,000 to $9,000 for one person. So if you have a family like you and your spouse, the latest estimation I can give you for me and my wife, it is about $12,500. That's what we have spent for our green card. And it takes a lot of time. I've been working on this since 2016 May, but honestly, I started giving more importance to it in around 2018 April, I guess. So it's close to 3 years now, and I'm still in the process. The wait times, especially for Indian-born individuals, again, it is not Indian citizenship, Indian-born individuals can average about 1 year to 20 plus years. As I go forward, you will understand why I'm saying Indian-born and not an Indian citizen. I'll come to most of it later on. Now let's look into what are the kinds of green cards we have. We have marriage-based, where you marry a US citizen and you can get green cards as the very quickest way. There's not much of a wait time. You get married to it, there is no limit, there's no country limit or anything. You married today, within a year, you can get your green card. So I'm not suggesting you to get married to a US citizen, but just keep that in mind. And then there is family based. You can, for example, you get your green card and then you get married to someone, then you can sponsor, that's your spouse and as well as your kids to get their green card. It is pretty much immediate, but there is also limitations on that. Once you become a US citizen, you can sponsor green cards for your immediate family, that is your parents. They can get right away. Your spouse parents can get right away. You can also sponsor your siblings, but it'll take a long, long time for them to get a green card. And you can also sponsor your kids who are older than 21. So that's something that if they age out, it's called age out. If they are 21 and they already you get a green card, they will not get a green card because they are already 21. So then you have to start another different process altogether. So you can see that this is not a straightforward process. It is complex. It takes time. For most of us here, maybe marriage based for few of you, you might be able to, you're lucky enough to get married to an American citizen, then you can go through the marriage based. But family based, it doesn't really, apply to us at this time. But most of us will have to eventually go in through employment based. So the employment based green cards, there are multiple subcategories within employment based. There are limited number of green cards again here for a fiscal year. Time varies based on the country of birth and visa availability for that EB category. And as I told you, most Indian-born applicants require about 1 year in minimum in EB1 category to 20 plus years to get a green card. Now, in employment-based green cards, again, I'm narrowing back to employment-based. There are 5 different EB categories. So of course, you and me, or most of us here today, we are not going to come under religious workers or maybe even entrepreneurs. So let's concentrate on EB1, EB2, and EB3. And as you can see, there are subcategories in EB1. EB1A is extraordinary ability. EB1B is outstanding professor and researchers. EB1C is multinational managers. And again, in EB2, you have an advanced degree and EB2 NIW, which is called National Interest Waiver. EB3 is skilled workers, professionals, and unskilled workers. So to give you like who are first preference, either mostly, film personalities, you have done extremely well in your own field. Most of us, like Dr. Kotbagi and myself, we qualified under EB1A category. If you're a professor or a researcher at a national lab or in a company, then you will qualify under EB1B. EB1C, most of us will not qualify because it's for multinational managers. Say, for example, you were a manager working outside the US. Let's say you are in India working for Infosys as a manager for at least 1 year. So now they send you to US and you're a manager here in US for Infosys for at least a year. Then they can sponsor you under EB1C. So as you can see, that's not something that you and me will qualify right now. So let's concentrate more on the ones that I have underline EB1A, EB1B, EB2, and IW. And you can see that there is a yearly limit. There's 40,040 visas. This is for the entire world. I mean, not just for Indians, but the entire world. Now, the Congress also mandates that no country can get more than 7%. So that is about 2,800 visas, I guess. If I calculate it, it's about 2,800 visas in EB1, A, B, and C. Cannot go beyond that for Indians or Chinese or any one country. But there are loopholes. I'll get to that. And similarly, for each of these, there are limitations. That is mostly 7%. And overall, in a fiscal year, US cannot give you more than 140,000 visas. This 140,000 visas includes everyone from the world, everyone from the world, Canadians, English, Australians, New Zealand, Chinese, Indians, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, every damn country on this world are considered in that 140,000. So you can see how much of people are going to apply along with you. So there's a long, long wait. So who are these first preference? They are the priority workers. So aliens with extraordinary ability in science, not just science, but arts, education, business, or athletes. They can qualify under EB1A. Outstanding professors and researchers, they only qualify under EB1B, and certain multinational managers. So what is the good thing about EB1 is there is no need of perm. So again, this is a new word for most of you. What is perm? I'll explain to you. This no need of perm can eliminate a wait time of about 7 months to an 8 months as of now. EB1A does not require you to have a job in the US. So that is not true for EB1B or EB1C. Only EB1A, you can be living in India, working for somewhere there, and you can still apply for EB1A sitting in India. You don't have to be in the US at all. You can be in Canada, you can be anywhere, or you can be even in the US. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have a job. You don't have to have an employer. But EB1B, you must be a researcher or a tenure track professor. You can't be a lecturer. You can't be on a non-tenure track. You have to be a tenure track professor. EB1C, yeah, as I told you, you have to be transferred to US from a company outside the US as a manager. Now, some of us, like who are in masters right now, we might qualify under what is called as EB2. So EB2 NIW again is very similar to EB1A. They don't require a firm or you to have a job in the US. You can sit anywhere and do a self-sponsoring. Unlike your EB2, which needs a firm and must be sponsored by a US employer. EB3 is the least, like, you don't really have to, you can have a bachelor's degree and then you can apply for EB3 right away, but needs firm and a US-based employer for sponsoring your green cards. So you probably have come across, and I might have overwhelmed you with too many, acronyms and new words. These are the terms that are good to know. What is PERM? So basically, it means permanent labor certification. So let's imagine you get a job, and then your company decides that they want to hire you permanently. Now, the Department of Labor in the US will not allow to displace the US American workers, like the US citizens and the other permanent residents who are already here. So your employer basically has to file a petition with the Department of Labor stating that, hey, I need to hire Harish because we don't have an employer who is an American who can do this job. At that time, Department of Labor is going to go through that petition and make sure that there are no Americans, and then they're going to give a permanent labor certificate saying, okay, you can go ahead and hire him as a permanent employee. H1B and O1 are all, temporary employee visas. So those are not permanent employee visas. So when they want to apply green card for you, they have to get this perm certificate, labor certified. Otherwise, you cannot go ahead unless you're on EB1A or EB2 NIW or EB1B. So what is priority date? This is something that you will get very familiar with whenever you discuss green card eventually. Your date in the green card line along with applicants from the rest of the world. So that's the date when you are like, okay, that is my date. Till that my date comes, I am not able to go into step 2 of final green card processing. What is I-140? That's the immigration petition. That's the first stage in making sure that, telling the United States Department of State that, hey, I want to be a permanent resident. That's the first stage. It's called I-140. I-140 is basically, it's your application form number. So everybody says it as I-140. And I-485, it's called adjustment of status. It's the final step. And you will go for adjustment of status or AOS if you're already in the US. Let's imagine, as I told you, like, EB1A and EB2 NIW, you can live outside the US, you can be outside the US, and you can still apply. In those times, you cannot apply for 485. You have to apply for what is called as IV or immigration visa processing. When your when your priority date becomes current, you go to the US consulate and then you go with the actual interview, get your green card, and then you come to the US. Visa bulletin. Once you are in I-140, I'm telling you, most of you will be waiting for this visa bulletin. It's fun to wait. Every month, there is no particular date. Closer to the 3rd week or the 4th week of the month, the Department of State publishes how much of visas are available and who can apply based on the priority date. So you should keep a look on this visa bulletin to know when you're allowed to apply for the final stage or the 485 or the IV. Now, employment authorization document and advance parole. This is something that is given to mostly for people who does adjustment of status, that is the final step of green card, who are already in the US. When your adjustment of status is pending with the USCIS. Now again, USCIS is a new term. I'll come to that again. What is USCIS? Will allow you to work in the US without any visa when your AOS is pending. So that means when you applied for a 485, they are going through your application. They will give you an EAD, which will allow you to work for anyone, any number of hours, anywhere in the US for you and your family. And you don't have to have a visa. And then you have an advanced parole. Parole basically means that you can travel in and out of the country without any visa. So if your visa is expired, you can still travel to India and come back, and nobody's going to ask you if you have an advanced parole. And your adjustment of status is still pending with the USCIS. So what is this priority date? When am I eligible to get my green card? Now, let's look at this. So if you apply an EB2, in advanced degree, you have to go through the form. So you have to walk through it. It's pretty slow. It takes about 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. Once your perm is approved, then your company is going to apply for I-140. Now, if you look at these two guys, EB2 NIW and EB1A or B, they don't have to apply perm. They can come directly apply for I-140. So they are saving a lot of time, at least a year, 6 months to a year, compared to this guy in green who has to go through this form and then he has to come and apply for I-140. Now the fun begins here. If you're an Indian born, and if you are either EB2 NIW or EB2 advanced degree, you get stuck here. You have to wait in line. Whereas a person who came here in blue, EB1A, as soon as his I-140 is approved, most of the time he can run past the I-485 and get his green card. Maybe the difference between this guy and this guy, 20 years to 30 years. That's how drastic the differences are getting every year. So basically, the priority date is when you're, if you're under EB2 EAD, advanced parole, it's when they file the perm with the Department of Labor. And EB3 is also the same. For EB2 NIW and EB1A, the date when the USCIS receives your I-140 application. So for example, my priority date is December 3rd, 2018. That means on December 3rd, 2018, USCIS acknowledged that they received my I-140 application. It is not about when it was approved, but it is when it was received. So that is my priority date. So when your PD becomes current, as I told you, right now the USCIS and the Department of State says that you are current, you can apply for your green card. Now let's look into how the visa bulletin will look like. This is the visa bulletin that the Department of State published 2 days back, and it is for February 2021, meaning in February 2021, who can apply? So employment-based first category is EB1, second category is EB2, third category is EB3. Now let's not look into this as of now. So we are mostly worried about these three. As you can see, they have not mentioned all the countries of the world. They have mentioned China, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, India, Mexico, Philippines, and Vietnam. Of all the countries in the world, these 6 countries use maximum number of employment-based visas in any of the category. In that, India is notorious. If you look at C means current, meaning any priority date they can apply, they have the visas available to them. But if you are an Indian born, you can only apply for your final stage of green card if your priority date is before Jan 1, 2020, that is about 1 year before. So if your I-140 was submitted even on December 31st, 2019, you are eligible to apply. But if you're on January 1st, 2020 or 2nd January 2020, you still have to wait. Whereas somebody from Mexico, if they submitted I-140 yesterday, they can apply for their 485 today. So because they have availability for that day. Why is that 2020? I'll come to that later. You will understand better. Now look at EB2. Why am I saying that, if I go back, you will stay here? The reason is because look at here. So this is like almost 11 years back. So people who in EB2, Indian born, who can apply, people whose priority date is well before 12th October 29. 2009. That's close to about like 11, 12 years. So people are waiting, and even if you're somewhere in 2014, you're not still eligible to apply for a green card. 2011, no. 2010, no. EB3, 1st April 2010. So you can see that, you basically get stuck in EB2 and EB3 if you apply as an Indian born. But on EB1, you are expected to move much quicker. So that's why we are emphasizing you to try to get into EB1 eventually, because you can get your green card as early as possible. Now, as you can see, India is lagging a decade in EB2, EB3, meaning a person who applied for PERM in 2009 and 10 are now eligible to apply for green card processing, whereas EB1 in is just before 2020. Moving forward, the speculations are the Indian-born applicants' PD to be current in EB3 going to be substantially increased. So, for example, most of you graduate students now, eventually, if you graduate this year and somebody applies for your green card next year in EB2 and EB3, the earliest you can get a green card will be about 50 years from that particular year. 50 years. I mean, you can imagine your kids are going to be like, you probably will have a grandkids by then, and you still might not have green cards. Again, this is based on what is the law today. How the administration is going to change that eventually, I don't know. I have gone through Bush, Obama, Trump, and now Biden. Everybody says we are going to do something, but to be very honest, there has been no law which has changed or improved the movement of EB1 or EB categories for India. Nobody agrees. Like, Democrats don't want to agree on one thing, Republicans don't want to agree on the other thing. So it's always a stalemate. So if somebody says that, okay, Biden is going to do something, don't have too much of expectation. If they do, well and good. If not, always work with what you have today and thinking about, getting into EB1 as early as possible. Now let's look into per country limits and wait times. Why is that India, as I told you, why not country of citizenship, but the country of birth is important. What happened is, like, when they made all these green card laws, the Congress mandated that no country should get a lot more than 7% of the total EB category. So that translates to about 2,800 VCs per country. The applicant's country of chargeability is based on applicant's country of birth and not on the citizenship. Say, for example, you have Ramesh and Suresh, right? Ramesh was born in UAE, but he has been Indian citizen and he has lived in India after his birth. So he has never gone back to UAE, nor he has gone back to US or any other country. He has been in India. He's been growing up in Mumbai. Now he's an Indian citizen, but he was born in UAE. Now we have Suresh. Suresh was born in India, but eventually he and his family migrated to Canada, and now they have been Canadian citizens. They both apply for green card under EB2 category in October 2021, 4 months before. The thing about the chargeability and all these things is that Ramesh, who was only born in UAE but an Indian citizen, can get his green card in as early as May 2021. In next 4 months, he can get his green card. But Suresh, who's never been in India but mostly a Canadian citizen, grew up in Canada, went to Canada, he can't get his green card till 2050 because he was born in India. The country of chargeability goes to India. So that's how important, the country of chargeability becomes. Why did they do it? Because so that no country can get more than 7%, so they can have, every country can have a fair amount of representation, and they can have equal claim for the green cards. So let's look into why is this happening with India? So why is Indian-born applicants, they have to wait for longer wait time? Because of the IT boom in 90s, there were thousands of people who came onshore, and companies started sponsoring their green card. So eventually, most of these qualified under EB2 and EB3. Most of the master students, they never went for PhD. Who came in let's say 2007, like me. If I had graduated in 2009 and my company applied for 2010, so there were so many master students who eventually came out. They all clogged the system along with the Indian IT crowd. There were so many applicants in EB2 and EB3. Remember, there is only certain amount of visas available. So the supply is low, but the demand is very, very high for Indian-born applicants. So when they do that country of chargeability, they look at like, okay, this guy is Indian born. Okay, you have to wait because Indian bonds are like plenty. There are like 5 lakh people ahead of you who have a priority date in 2009, 2010, 2011, 12. So if you are now applying in 2021, you have to make sure that everybody ahead of you gets green card and then you can get. So now, this 2080 green card issued per country includes even your family. So that means, like, let's say somebody who came from India, an IT employee in 2008, has applied for a green card in 2010. He, his wife, and his 2 kids are going to consume 4 out of those 2080. So eventually, practically, maybe, India gets only about like on average 1,000 visas in EB1, EB2, and EB3 every year. But there are certain times when India gets more than that 2080 or 2080 visas, and that is called something called as spillover. It is good to know what is spillover. So, as we informed before that there are limited number of green cards available and is regulated by Congress, there is a huge gap between supply and demand. So, let's look into what is spillover. So, uh, initially what used to happen was when there is a limit of 40,000. So if there is only 10,000 Indians and let's say the total applicants in EB1, including the Indians, Chinese, and everyone all over the world is about 30,000. So all those 30,000 visas are consumed. Now there is 10,000 extra visas left for a fiscal year. What they're going to do is they don't have to waste it. They can send that down to second preference, that is EB2. So EB2 will consume the unused from EB1. Similarly, if there is anything left with EB2, that will go down to trickle down to EB3. That's called spillover. And once whatever is unused with EB3, that will go to EB4, EB5. The good thing is EB4, it will not go back like this from EB4 to EB3. It won't. It will always trickle down. It will always spill over to the next. And then EB5, whatever is unused, will go back to first preference. Most of the time, EB2 and EB3, they will not spill over anything because there are so many people from rest of the world who are also getting, entering in EB2 and EB3 category. Religious workers includes like, churches, mosques, temples, synagogues, anyone, they all go into this EB4. So there's about 9,000 or close to 10,000 visas. And then you have entrepreneurs. So this is the spillover. This is called as vertical spillover. Then there is also horizontal spillover, meaning, as I told you, initially, India is only going to get 2,080 visas or 2,800 visas in each category, right? So what happens if there is, out of this 40,000, India needs about 8,000 visas, let's assume, and the rest of the world and everything uses close to 35,000. You still have 5,000 left. And there is still a demand of 3,000 with Indians. That is going to call as horizontal, meaning whatever is unused in that particular category is going to countries like India and China, who has a very high demand. And after that, whatever is unused left over is going to trickle down into, it's called vertical spillover. These vertical spillovers and all these things are something that you and me, we don't have to think right now because, it's once in a lifetime. And I'll give you an example of that. And what happens, are all these 140,000 visas used every year? Not necessarily. Every year there has been few hundred visas always wasted, meaning they could not allot all of these 140,000 visas to applicants every year. Because of the processing speed or any other things, they cannot. Some of these visas are unused. What happens to those unused visas? Those are not captured. They don't roll over to the next year. Rather, they become wasted. However, we have a silver lining, that is family-based green card. As I showed you before, we have marriage, family, and employment-based. Now, this family-based green card has a limit of 226,000, which is about almost like 80,000 extra green cards compared to our employment-based, which is like 140,000. Whatever unused visas that are there in this family based will spill over to employment based in the next year. Say, for example, the fiscal year starts October 1st of that, for example, fiscal year 2021 runs from October 2020 to September 2021. So whatever visas are unused in EB this year will go waste. The clock will reset, the numbers will reset again on October 1st, 2022, 2021. And family, whatever is unused, let's say 10,000 they couldn't use out of the 26,000, that will come down to employment base. So next year, employment will have 150 in place of 140. Has this happened before? This has happened recently. When Trump administration issued an EO banning all green cards for families during the spring of 2020, a lot of these consulates abroad, they stopped issuing green cards for families. So what happened was they were unused, meaning they were still there and there was no applicants, they were not taking any applicants. So as a result of that, in October 2020, when the fiscal year started, 2021, all those unused that were close to about, I think, 100,000 visas that were unused, that spilled over to employment based, meaning now in this fiscal year that is running right now, instead of 140,000, the employment based has close to 100 and 260,000. So meaning there is a very high supply now. So there is significantly 7% of 260 is now almost double of 2000. I think it's close to 7% or so. That's the number of visas that are available. That's how the spillover sometimes works for you. Now, this was with Trump administration, where they canceled the family-based, and according to the law, again, the family-based unused should roll over to employment-based, and the unused employment-based will go waste. But the new administration under President Biden is most probably going to reverse that EO the next fiscal year, and he's probably going to say whatever unused in employment-based should go to employment-based, and whatever unused in family-based will go to family-based. So meaning it depends this year how many they can, how many green cards that can be issued in 260,000. If they can issue all the 260,000, there will be no spillovers next year. And this can continue go on and on. Again, as I said, like you have to know green card processing is also dependent on markets. Green card processing is also dependent on who administrations are, what are they doing, what are their political goals. So there's too many things to consider. Nothing is in our hand. So let's come into two things. Understand the difference between Department of State and USCIS, and what is IV and AOS. As I mentioned before, Department of State is the one that issues all the green cards and also all your visas. Any kind of visas for you is issued by Department of State. USCIS is a branch under Department of State. So if you are already in the US, like most of us, and your I-140 is approved, you apply for your final green card processing under USCIS. And you also get EAD and AP, which will allow you to freely work in the US without any visa requirements. In certain cases, as I said, like, you applied I-140, but then you had to move back to India or to Canada or somewhere else. Now you cannot apply with USCIS because USCIS works only for applicants within the US, whereas the Department of State works for all the applicants outside the US. Then you have to go for what is called as immigrant visa processing. The unfortunate thing is you will not be eligible to get EAD or parole, and you cannot travel to US till your green card is approved. You have to do that in your home country. Say for Indians, you have to go to US consulate in Mumbai, get your green card stamped, and then you can travel to US. So let's explain what is better for you. Is immigrant visa processing better or any US? So you and your family, if you're already in the US and your priority date becomes current, like me, the family can apply for adjustment of status by submitting I-485 to the USCIS. Me and my wife, we are both going to get EAD and parole. And if your kids are non-US citizens, they are also going to get the same. They can continue to work and study in the US when their AOS is still pending with the USCIS, and can travel abroad. So if you have an advanced parole and you can still freely travel abroad, go to India, come back to US without any issues. What happens when you are in India? So if I and my wife were to be in India now, and my priority date is current, then I cannot apply for this adjustment of status. I have to apply with the Department of State by filling TS-268. It's pretty much like how you applied for your F1 visa in India. That's the same kind of thing. I have to pay the fee. fill the forms, and then they're going to call me for an interview. I have to go with all the documents, attend the interview at the US consulate in Mumbai. And if they are happy with it, they will go to stamp like, an immigrant visa, and then I have to travel to the US. The downside is I don't get any ADN and advance parole. I cannot travel to US. And there's a good thing is if I'm in the US and if I think like, okay, let me just go to India and get this, I can still go and get my immigrant visa processing done. It's a little quicker than adjustment of status. So let's actually now move into actual discussions on EB2, EB1 and EB2 and how you can qualify in these two categories. So let's see for EB2, advanced degree. So if you're just a master's or even a PhD, and if you don't have a very strong profile, what happens is, then they're going to submit your form, and it takes about 5 to 8 months or maybe a year. Again, it all depends on things like, for example, nobody saw COVID. A year back, nobody knew that COVID can bring so much of havoc. Now the firm, I think the wait time is about 1 to 1.5 years, or it might increase eventually. In step 2, once your permit is approved, they're going to apply for your I-140. Again, this is the processing I'm talking about. In between that process, like, to get all your documents done and all those things, that's another few months. It's going to take another 5-8 months if you do regular processing to get an answer whether your I-140 is approved or not. If they want to do premium processing by paying some $1,500 or so, you can get an answer in 1 to 2 weeks. And then the final step is adjustment of status. If your priority date is current, it's less than a year. If not, then there is no limit in wait time. As I told you, like people who applied in 2011, probably they have to wait another 5 or 6 years before they get their green card. So in EB2, the thing is you have to be in the US. This has to be sponsored by the US-based employer. You generally need to have an advanced degree or at least 5 years of professional experience if it's just a bachelor's degree. You need, again, a US-based employer to sponsor your green card and cannot be self-petition. How about EB1A and EB2 and IW, and why we really like it? So there is things that I'll show you, but let's just see. For EB1A and EB2 and IW, there are multiple stages. Most of you are now here in the pre-application stage. If you are a PhD student, or even if you're a master student, I would like you to look into this pre-application stage. Be very proactive, write as many journal papers as possible. First author is great, if not at least second author, it's good. Try to review papers. You should get invitations, not like, your advisor got an invitation to review the paper and he forwarded to you. That doesn't count. You have to get an email from the editor of the journal saying that, hey, so-and-so, can you please review this paper? You start reviewing papers. Why is this important? It's because that's you are going to fulfill certain criteria, and you will see what are those criteria required. Do the best you can in your research. Give your 100%. Document the smallest possible interaction about someone wanting to know more about your work or anything. These can be very important during your stages of filing. Get in touch with attorney. Don't wait for anyone. Don't think like, let me finish my PhD, I can do this later. No, this is a different, PhD is different. Don't say, okay, this is my priority 1, this is priority 2. No, green card should take its own lane, and it should be going even though you are not doing anything. If you're doing PhD, that is different. If you're going to get married, that is different. Your green card should follow. Doesn't matter what it is. Start working on it today, now. Do not wait for employer to file your green card. Do not wait for anyone. Okay. And one of the most important thing is save money for attorney fee and application fee. It's going to cost a lot of money, and start today and start now. And in your step 1 of application for I-140, hire a good attorney, work with them, start gathering evidence of how you reviewed the paper. This is mostly like thank you emails, collect soft copies. You need recommendation letters from 5 to 6 people. At least 4 of them has to be from people with whom you have not worked. Document everything from your bachelor's to PhD. What you have worked on, smallest amount of work also documented. Keep it in mind that, okay, this is something project I worked on. Has somebody been using it? It may be 10 years old. It's still important. come up with a story. You should come up with a story in such a way that when you explain to your parents about what research you're doing, they should be knowing, okay, this is helpful, and make build a story in such a way that that is going to help, eventually the impact the US, how it is going to impact the US. The final stage is the once your I-140 is approved, you're going to go into application adjustment of status, or IV. This is the most final stage. Again, as I said, here you're going to collect document about your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, and every other documents since your birth. That is very important. So all these has to go hand in hand, meaning you can work simultaneously on all these things. You can start working on your birth certificate right now. Look at the birth certificate. Do you have a birth certificate? If not, how can I, get a birth certificate now? Because when you travel to India next time, you can start working on that birth certificate, applying for at your municipal office, going into municipal office and making sure, if you don't have a translation, your name is missing, your parents' name is missing or wrong, you can always start working on it, because you don't want to miss when the time comes.
So,
And
yeah, so guys, again, sorry, Harish. I assume that you guys are all researchers. Can you go back to your previous slide? So I would like you guys to focus on this slide the most. Of course, whatever Harish told right from the slide one is extremely helpful to understand the depth and the significance of the process. But right now, you guys need to focus on this slide the most if you are planning to start working on your process. And it's never too late. Even if you're a master student or a PhD student, you need to go through all these steps, because what counts is your case that can be proven to the government that you are outstanding and useful to the country. So this is what you will have to focus. All the other visas and types of green cards will come into picture later. But because you are researchers, this is definitely, you guys should plug it in your brains and work accordingly all through your research tenure as a student or as an employee with a company or a university. And this is the I-140 step is extremely intense, extremely rigorous, and you will have a lot of roadblocks because it is very competitive, and it also depends on various cases. Harish, are you going to walk
yeah,
them through the different what do you jurisdictions or different centers, USCIS centers, and how the
no,
cases are done?
I didn't include that, but
Because
I think
that's
we
very
can include
important
that.
as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
FAQs, we can do that.
yeah, so guys, I would definitely want you guys to focus on slide 25. This is totally your work. You need to do it, and you need to do it like from now onwards.
Yeah,
So
if you're really serious about green cards, I mean, when they come up with a story on your research and how it impacts the US, this is, see, basically the person who is going to review your I-140 is someone who has a degree in arts. So let's say you have a degree in chemistry, you're explaining to your research in a very high level, and you're taking it to that guy who has done his degree in arts, and telling him why my research is important to the US. So basically think like this: explain to your mother and see your mother is happy. If your mother can be like, okay, I understand what you're doing. My mother can now say like, okay, Harish, I understand what you're doing, your research. That's how you are probably presenting your work to the person who is reading, or the officer who is going through your application, and saying, look, I've done so much in a very simple way, and documenting and saying, look, there are people from US, there are people from UK, Europe, India, Australia who are researching my work. They are using my work. Important thing is how they are using your work, and
yeah,
how your work is going to be useful to the US. You are not going to say, when I come there, I'm going to do this. That is not. It should be what you've already done and how it can impact the US. Don't think
Harish,
of
do
the
you have
future.
How many slides do you have? Because I would like to discuss more about this slide after you're done with your presentation.
Yeah,
This,
I'll just go through, run through most of the other things. So let's just go into the EB to NIW. I mean, again, this is very similar. I'm just going to give you this, I'll run through this. You skip the perm and then now you're going to do NIW. NIW is very important. If you're not an Indian born, then NIW can be very, very instrumental. It can also get your green card much quickly, again, based on the country of your chargeability. EB1 extraordinary ability. This is where you have to really concentrate. Everybody has to concentrate because that's where you are going to apply. This is a self petition. You don't have to have a job offer. You can be a grad student. You can apply for EB1A if you have a good profile. That's something that me and Dr. Kotbagi will probably emphasize more on. You have to look here. You need to fulfill 3 out of 10 criteria. Now let's look at what are those 10 criteria. This is not what I made. This is exactly the thing that is on USCIS. See, in order to demonstrate you have sustained national or international acclaim, that your achievements have been recognized in your field of expertise, you must either include evidence of one-time achievement, like for example, you won an Oscar, a Nobel Prize, or a Pulitzer Prize, any of those, then you don't have to fulfill these 3 criteria. But unfortunately, most of us here, at least the 6 of us here, we have not won any of these things. So we have to go through the 3. Why I have underlined is most of the PhD students here, when you graduate, you might be able to fulfill any of these underlying criteria. Evidence of a receipt of a lesser nationally or internationally recognized prize or awards of excellencies. Evidence that you have been asked to judge where you are reviewing journal articles or you are a chair of a conference. That is, you are sufficing number 4. Criteria 4. Criteria 5. Evidence of your original scientific scholarly has been, somebody has been citing your work, somebody is using your work. That is number 5. Evidence of your authorship or scholarly articles, that you have published articles in reputed journals. So when you're working in your PhD, you're already working on some of these things. You're trying to fulfill 6. Most of you would write journal articles. That is 6. Some of your articles will be cited. You might have a patent that you would have developed in PhD. That's number 5. Number 4, as I said, like this is something a lot of people will struggle because most of us will not be reviewing when you're a PhD student. But start working on this, and I'll give you why and how. Why I should apply. And as I told you, all those 10, 15 slides before I gave you was to make you understand how serious this is and how kind of a length we have, what is the line that we have, and what is the wait times that we have. So if you you don't have to wait for sometimes when you're right out of PhD, you might not qualify under EB1A. Your profile might not be that good. You might not have published as many papers. You might have like 3 papers. For example, when I graduated, I had like 3 papers or 4 papers, but then I only reviewed 1. It'll take time for you to review. It is understandable. In that meantime, what you can do, you can apply for NIW, EB2 NIW with all the credentials that you have. What does it do is it will put you in line. So NIW, EB2 NIW, you also have to fulfill 3 out of the 10 criteria, but the officer who is reviewing will not be so critical about you. If you have 3 papers or 4 papers, he's still going to say, okay, that's good, no problem, I can give you NIW. But for EB1A, the same officer will look at your applicant and say, you have 4? No, we need like 10, 12, 13. So that's how the difference is. Though it's the same criteria, the way they criticize or they kind of go through your application is different. So I would really suggest, if you do not qualify, if your profile is not strong when you are in PhD or when you are just graduated PhD, work with your attorney, try to get this NIW and come and get in line. Getting in line is the most important thing. The reason you are ahead of us. I'll give you an example. There is something called as porting. Okay, porting your priority. So let's assume you are in a master's graduate. You decide to work after graduation in May 2021, or you can be a PhD, whatever it is. You found a job and your employer is now sponsoring your green card under EB2 because you don't qualify under EB1, whatever the reason. Or, if you're a PhD, you're sponsoring your own EB2 and NIW. And now your priority date is, let's say they submit in December 2022. That will be your priority date. After a couple of years, You know, if you're a master's, you decide to do a PhD, or if you are a PhD student, you are a couple of years down the lane, your profile really improves. Like, for example, mine really improved about 3 years down the lane from my PhD. Now you apply for EB1A, let's say in December 2026, you and your friend. But you have a priority date of December 2022 based on your EB2, and that can be ported to 2026. And the priority date, for any reason, for India backlogs and it retrogrades, which happens every damn time. And for me, it happened. And I'm telling you, it is not good waiting. I waited for 2 years. So let's say in 2026, it retrogrades back to December 2023. The friend who applied with you and who don't have a priority date may have to wait for a long time in line, but you are saved because you had an EB2 NIW or EB2 EAD that was applied in December 2022. You ported, you went and said, I'm already in line since December 2022. I'm going to use the same priority date on my EB1, and you can submit your application. You are going to get a green card. Well, your friend is not going to get till he becomes current. That he or she, when they're going to get current, we don't know. 10, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, maybe. The difference, look, Trupti applied in February 2017. She had a green card in October 2017. I applied green card in December 2018. It is February 2021 now, almost. I still don't have a green card. See, that's the wait time. What can happen, like, if you think that I'm going to wait and do later on, don't think about that. Start today. That's why it is important. If I had applied for NIW in 2017, when the lawyer said, apply Harish, right now you're eligible, my priority date would have been 2017 and I would have got green card maybe a year back. So that's how things can change. It's very fluid. You don't know what the administration who's going to come can do, how the political situations are, how the market is. Everything is tied up. So how do I spell self-sponsored? Think about that and start working on it. You have to think about cost also. It costs about $5,000 just for your I-140 applications, and then another $2,500 for your adjustment of status. This is just saying if you are just one person. As I told you, like for one person, the average is about $8,000 to $9,000, I think, Trupti, if I'm right. And for me, as a family, for me and my spouse, I think I spent about $12,500 altogether from the beginning, including the lawyer's fees and the application fee and everything. And the time you could have already seen. I started April 2018, and we are close to end of Jan now, and I'm still waiting for my green card. How do I prepare myself? And I think this is where me and Trupti is probably going to come in to you. No matter EB1 or EB2 NIW, right? Evidence of your authorship, publish papers, preferably as a first author. If you have done some work, if some of your colleagues is publishing, if they put you second author, doesn't matter, publish. You have to be at the forefront of publishing. The next few years is very crucial. Book chapters, books, presenting at international conferences, don't leave anything. If you get a chance, go. Talk to your advisors and see, and talk to, if you can attend more conferences. Some of, like, if you're a computer science, I think you can't publish in journals. IEEE publications and conference publications are more important. So again, it depends again on what area you are. If you're a mechanical engineer, material scientist, electrical, I think publishing in journals are more critical than, let's say, if you're a computer scientist and publishing in IEEEs. Evidence that you have been asked to judge the work of others. And this is a crucial one. It takes a long time. For me, it took about 1 year. Convince your advisor right now that when you write a paper, though you are first author, you have to be contributing author, because once you're a contributing author, where you go and submit the journals, you will automatically start getting review invitations from those publishers. This is very, very important. And document them. Like if you get an email saying, hey, can you please, Dr. Rao, can you review this journal article? Take a PDF printout of it, keep it somewhere secure, review it. When you send it back, when you upload your reviews, whatever on the journal article website, they're going to send you an automated email saying, like, Dr. Rao, thank you for reviewing. That email is very important because that is going to go as an evidence to the I-140 official saying that you are reviewing somebody else's work. Document, document, document. Uh, Being co-chair at a conference can also fulfill this criteria. So see, you are working on your PhD, doing everything that your advisor wants, publishing papers and doing everything, and at the same time you can fulfill these criteria. That's how you have to plan. Evidence of your original scientific scholarly articles. Citations takes time. I was there. I know, you might have 10 citations now, but try to citations, not just citations. You can also think about somebody might, a graduate student somewhere in India might have contacted you and said, sir, I went through your paper, I want to know more about this, I want to use your work. That is also very important, saying that somebody is using your work and it is important. So those are the things. Document those things. Don't leave out anything. Nothing is small, nothing is big. Everything can be used if you make a proper story out of it. So document these things. Think about anything. Somebody had contacted you, some professor had contacted you about knowing some of the work, right? They want to know something. How did you do this? You're helping them out. That can be used, that your work has been used by somebody. The other criteria is where you might qualify. Evidence of nationally or internationally recognized prize should be at a conference. You can't say I won something at my university level or my college level. No, those things doesn't matter. But you should have document how many participants were there. Let's say it was in a conference where there were 50 universities or 10 universities from all around the world. You won the first prize or second prize. You are fulfilling this one of these criterias. Evidence of membership doesn't matter. Like, I'm an IEEE member, I'm an ASME member, ASTM member, or member of any of those, where you become a student member or paid member. That doesn't count. You have to be like a fellow where you are invited because you have done amazing work. They have given you a membership. That should be very important. You have to, again, have evidence for it. Evidence published about you, professional journals or magazines or newspapers or media outlets, anything. So if you've done some work, your research, somebody recognized it and they put it up about you, what you're working on, about your work, you have to document that. If it's in a video, have that video file with you. Even if it is in India, it's in a different language, have it, document everything. Small things, no problem. Something that you did in bachelor's, no problem. That also counts. That something was published about you and your work in a leading, but not in university magazines, not in your college magazines or on your university website. It has to have a wide, how many people got to read that, where was the circulation, how many, circulations were done, how many papers were in magazines were published. Those kind of numbers also you need. Evidence of performance of a leading or critical role in a distinct organization. This is mostly when you are like, VP or a lead scientist or a director, which most of us might not go right away, but keep this in mind. If you're not in a company, it should be like, the company should say, hey, if this person leaves, there is nothing. I mean, our work will stop, or we'll go under laws, bankruptcy can happen. That's the kind of what is critical role. That's how you fulfill that. Evidence that you command high salary. To be very honest, this is very tricky, and that's the reason I don't want to put anything here. You can talk with your attorney, but in general, if you're doing EB1A or EB2 NIW, I would go with this slide 33. Take a good look about this and start preparing this, because this is something you can do right now from today, and you have everything with you. So I think that was pretty much what I could gather with me, my experience, based on my experience and most of my friends. I would really want you to, kind of digest this. If you have any questions, don't feel, this is a stupid question or anything. There is nothing stupid or intelligent in terms of green card. Everybody's things is different. Uh, Ask me, and if I know anything, I will say Dr. Kotbagi is here. She's also experienced. She has gone through it. We both will be very happy to answer all your questions.
Harish,
Anything good.
if you want to stop sharing the screen, we can let them unmute and have the videos on, and we can make it more interactive for the questions.
Okay.
So, guys, this is all over very, very overwhelming. Harish has put in a lot of effort and work to make this simpler by breaking it into so many items and making you understand what needs to be done to get a green card in process. However, again, I'm going to reiterate, concentrate from slide number 25. and to the rest of the slides for getting into the system. I'm going to make it even not simpler but easier and more relatable to you guys by how I got the green card, so that you will have a real life experience on what I went through and what I could do to make my case stronger. My minus point was I do not have an educational background from America. I did all my education in India, and it was difficult for me to get into the system and understand the entire process. Whatever accomplishments I had, whatever papers I had or patents I had published was during my PhD in India. So it was basically, although if you have a lot of publications and patents, and if they're published in some other country, it doesn't really give that much weightage than what you can show that you have done in this country. And that's why since day one I started working to get more and more publications. Again, it depends on cases. Some people want to publish in quality journals and get better publications in better journals with better impact factors. That was not my aim. I did not just publish it in any kind of journal, but average journals in which the work could be really recognized, and that was my main aim. So although I had like 10 or 11 publications from India, I made sure in the period of 2 or 2.5 years I could publish 8 to 9 more publications in America. I had two patents in India, but I made sure I could publish two more patents in America during my postdoctoral tenure, and also since I started working with the company. Another important thing I did as soon as I came to America, and it always leads to someone telling you that you should start doing this, is first thing, analyze if you want to stay in the country. And if you want to stay in the country, it is no harm in preparing yourself for doing this. So I started doing reviews for different journals. It was not an easy task. If you are doing reviews for any journals, make sure that the journal has an impact factor. Even if it has an impact factor of zero point 0.1, it's okay, but the journal needs to have an impact factor. So I started working with these lower impact journals. I started writing uh, audaciously to all the editors and told them that I have published in your journals and I would be very happy to review any articles if you have for me. Because what the attorney does is they analyze your entire case, and after they analyze, they tell you what needs be done to make your case stronger. So they will go through your publication. So you definitely will need to have a Google Scholar link in which they will get to know your entire research profile. They will look at your citations or H index and things like that, and they will tell you, like, if you don't really have a lot of citations, they will ask you to work on more number of review articles. So you should not limit yourself to any journal or any number of review articles, and keep doing that on a constant basis, on a routine basis. Another important thing is, which all the researchers face, is you do not have kind of that, sometimes that kind of effective communication or the way to let your professor or your postdoc advisor know the need of publications. And that's why people lag in publishing. So what happens is, um, you keep on generating data, but if you cannot encache that data, it's not going to help you and you are going to lose on time. So you have to make sure to let your professor know how important it is to document your research and publish it in front of the world. And if that is worth doing, you should go ahead and do it, and don't restrict yourself to impact factor. It is always good to publish in big journals, but if you want to really start encashing and getting into the system for the green card processing, these things are necessary for you to do right in the beginning. And we lack in doing that. We have some kind of a hesitation to talk to our supervisors, but don't do that. Sometime at the end of the day, he'll get convinced, he or she, and they will let you publish. Again, very important thing is getting recommendation letters. So again, depending on how strong your profile is, uh, the recommendation letter, the number of recommendation letters required for the process is important. So again, you cannot get recommendation letters from people who you have worked with. There are only two recommendation letters you can take from people who you have worked with, but the rest of the recommendation letters, minimum four, maximum we don't know, need be taken from people who know you because of your work, who have acknowledged your work. So, and that is a very tedious job. You need to find those uh, references who can help you give this recommendation letter. Once you have those people ready, and these people you can get through contacts over LinkedIn's, or you go to conferences, you make contacts with them, you keep in touch with people with a foresight that you will need to get recommendation letters from these people. And don't restrict yourself with, like, I needed six recommendation letter, two the one from known people and four from unknown people. But I know friends who needed eight recommendation letters, somebody, and there are a lot of case variations. So make sure you know as many people who can help you with recommendation letters. Work with such a lawyer who will draft the recommendation letters for you. Otherwise, it's going to take a lot of time from you all to draft the recommendation letters. And again, it definitely needs to have that specific type of legal terminology throughout your recommendation letters. And we are technical people, so we are really not very acquainted with the language that needs to go in the drafting of such recommendation letters. So make sure you hire a lawyer who does that. And as again, as Harish mentioned, so many criteria, you have to fulfill as many criteria as possible in whatever time you have. Like, you should have some kind of media coverage. Again, I had a lot of media coverage in India, but I couldn't use that because it was in Marathi newspapers and nobody is going to translate that. So they might not even consider it as a media coverage. But my media coverage in America, in which we were featured in an Alabama business magazine, and we were published in CNEN magazine, that helped. It also helps you are a judge, not a judge. Uh, Harish, what do you call the a session chair? Session chair in different conferences. So you need to email the organizers or the organizing committee of these conferences you are attending, showing the willingness that you would like to be a chair of any session. That helps a lot. Another important thing is, you cannot control your citations. You cannot force someone to cite your journal paper, your patent, or your research articles. So it is analogous to YouTube videos. More videos you post, more views you get, more subscribers you get. It's the same way. More articles you publish, more people are going to recognize your work, and more people are acknowledged and cite your work. So this is how you can increase your citations. There is no shortcut. You cannot cut corners through all these steps. You definitely have to go through all these steps. And all these things are necessary for getting your I-140 in place. This needs only your sound technical background. There are also people like, he was on the call right now, I think Vijay. He is doing some entrepreneurial course like iCorp. So he might go ahead and start his own company. That is a big green flag for you to get your green card faster, because that will prove that you're going to generate economy, and you are, that's how helpful to the country. You're going to generate money, you're going to generate employment for the country. So this is a big deal, and that's how you can get a green card. So he might as well not need any kind of papers, citations, patents, nothing. But if he shows that he's generating funds, he's generating employment, that is another kind of weightage he will get for his green card. These are all the technical documentation that you will need for your first step of I-140. Once you go through the I-140, the second part is the adjustment of status, the I-485, in which you will need a lot of paperwork. It is a no-brainer paperwork, but it is also intense. The reason is you will have to go through a lot of medical tests to show that you don't have any SDs, STDs, no contagious, no infectious diseases, and there are only specific doctors designated um, to do these kind of tests. So you cannot just go to any practitioner and get these tests done, but there are designated doctors in every town. You can set an appointment with them and get those things done with them. Another another important thing, Jabin, you have a question? Okay, so another important thing is, as he said, birth certificate. There are few important things that you have to consider when you are talking about a birth certificate. First thing, if you have a birth certificate, good. Make sure you have the name on your birth certificate. Make sure that birth certificate is from the year of your birth and it is in English. If you don't fulfill any of these three things, what you have to do is you need an affidavit from your mom and your dad, two affidavits. So they can be your mom and dad. Sometimes people have single parents, so it can be your whoever parent and your uncle, your aunt, any relative, your cousin, anybody. So they have to make sure that you were born to these parents. Those are your biological parents, and you are born in this year or on this particular date. The reason is because you don't have your birth certificate from that year. The reason is you do not have your birth certificate in that language, in English language. Another important thing is, if you do not have, nowadays birth certificates are given in two languages on the same document, where you have your first language, the mother tongue, and the second column is your is in English. But in our case, we didn't have that, so we had to go back and make a birth certificate in English language. And that was the reason I could not have the date of uh, my birth on that English birth certificate, and that's why I had to get the affidavits saying these two people are my biological parents and they signed it. All those things can be done in India. So next time you go to India, and if you're planning, you have these problems, go ahead and get those affidavits in place. You don't have to worry about the dates on the affidavits. I got my affidavit sometime in 2015, and I applied in 2017 May for 485. So that was fine. That date is not going to be a problem. Another thing they will ask you to do is, even if there is, if your birth certificate has that Marathi, any first mother tongue, uh, it's scripted in your mother tongue, attorneys will give you a, Harish, what is that called? Did you go through that? Wherein you have someone who can sign it, who is already in America and says that I am fluent in this language as well as English, and I can tell that this person is not a fraud and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, see, once you start working with the attorney, the important
Yeah,
thing that basically our Trupti wants to say here is that your birth certificate is going to be very crucial in the final stage. So start working on it, because especially if you're
yeah,
born in India, we do not have birth certificate in a proper way. I'm not blaming you. A lot of people will not have birth certificate. Like for example, in my birth certificate, my mother's name is wrong. It's her maiden name, but which she has officially never used. So if those are the things, have a look at birth certificate and see what is needed. And once you start working with an attorney, right, they will tell you, like, okay, you can ask them question and say, hey, attorney, my birth certificate is wrong, my mother's name is missing, father's name is missing, or most birth certificates will not have your own name. Like my sister's birth certificate has girl in it, because in India birth certificates are not like, sometimes if it is registered within certain week, like weeks or month of birth, you don't have a name, right? Like, your naming ceremony happens after 5 months after your birth. So in those situations, how do you deal with it? And also your birth certificate, if you don't have, or if it is registered after a certain number of days after your birth, you also have to get a letter why it was registered late. So things of those things you have to start working again. If you have
these
your
are all
original.
very small things, and the attorneys will tell you. But because I had friends who had gone through all this, so all those documents for me were already ready, and it did not mess with my timing. I mean, I could do everything without any delays in my processing. So these are, although these are small things, these need to be taken care. So you should start working on it and taking care of it. So
Yeah,
the
and again, I mean, it's not just about you. I mean, like, let's say you apply I-140 and you get married next year, and now your I-485 you're applying with your spouse. If your spouse doesn't have a birth certificate, you can get your green card, but your spouse will be stuck because they cannot apply without a proper birth certificate. So, documentation of anything is
like
a
your
very key thing.
tax documents are important. Don't think that who will need the W2 or who will need the 1099. You will need everything when you're applying for the last step of green card. So document everything in your files. You are going to need every single paper that you have to show that you have been legally staying in the country for so many years.
Yeah, and the most important thing right now is to like how you get your I-140 approved. Don't think about like my priority date or anything as of now, because as I told you, the important thing is to get in the line. It may be NIW or EB to NIW, or it may be EB1A. Start working on it from today and start collecting all the documents that is required for your I-140, as
Yeah,
well as
I don't know if there is anybody who is on J1 visa here, because they will have to start working on the waiver, and you don't need J1 waiver to apply for I-145. But there are also a few restrictions if you're traveling to India. So you have to make sure about those timings and when to start with the waiver so that you can get through all those things and have all those papers ready for 485. And J1 waiver visa is J1 waiver is also a very lengthy process, isn't it, Harish? Or is
yeah,
it?
yeah. Is there anyone who's on J1 here? I know Rekha is not, but
Yeah, I think nobody
I mean,
is.
if Vamshi or I know Jabin is still an F1.
Yeah.
Vamshi, are you a F1 student or J1 or H1?
Hi. In fact, I'm not a student at all. Basically, I'll move to Alabama in the next year.
Okay.
I'm a master's student. I'm going to pursue my PhD over there. So that's my status of.
So you're at a very early stage. So you probably will be knowing now, like
Yeah,
people.
it helped me out to streamline the process, so I can start working out few things. So I can streamline the process as of now. I see.
Yeah. So I mean, if eventually if any one of you will come into J1, I mean I think the immediate one I see is Jabin. Probably she's in the final year of PhD. Some national labs and universities, they don't like to sponsor H1s because it is kind of complicated. They have to go through attorney and everything. So they say, hey, we can sponsor your J1 right away.
But the good thing for her, Harish, is she can work. She has a STEM OPT, so she will have 3 years of OPT. And if she starts working on her green card process today, she might as well have an EAD and not
Yeah.
even go through the J1 process. I mean, try to avoid J1 visa as much as possible.
Yeah, it took me about 1.5 years just because of the J1. I mean, I had to get waiver. The waiver, getting a waiver from Indian government is pretty straightforward now, unlike what Trupti had to. It is the Indian government does everything online, but getting a waiver from your state government, there are three waivers. You get
Yeah.
one from the Indian government, one from the Ministry of Human Resource, and one from your state department. It took about 4 months for me to get from the State Department, and that's just the step one. Then you have to apply for the Department of State. Right now, one of our colleague here at UA, it took him almost close to 9 months to get his waiver after he did all the other previous things in India. So don't get into J1. If possible, stick with H1 as much as possible and try to work on your green card right away. That's pretty much what we would like to say.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions, I know there's only like Vamshi is new. We have Rekha who is H1 and probably she's already contacted one of the attorneys. So Jabin, I'm pretty sure you had a lot of
And
questions.
Jabin, I would like to tell you that you can, if you haven't started your process yet, see where you stand right now. And I would definitely recommend Chen Lawyers. Um I will write their website on the chat, in the chat box. So they have something called, oh,
Free evaluation.
yeah, they have something called free evaluation. Don't jump into that and get your free evaluation done right away. Just go through where you stand right now, because once they do the free evaluation, they'll get back to you in 24 working hours or 24 hours, whatever. But if you go ahead and ask them any question regarding that, they will ask you to pay for any of the responses you want from them. So make sure where you stand, see if that is necessary, and if you think you are there, go ahead and get your case evaluated. And I have shared their website. I think so far those people are the best in terms of giving results, and they are blatant enough to tell you if your case is strong or not strong, and what needs to be done, and whether they will even work on your case depending how strong or weak your case is. Harish, do you also recommend them?
For what?
Do you also recommend Chen lawyers? I mean, they are
I
my
mean,
favorite.
everybody has a different thing. For me, Shen has been, she worked with me through all the things and she's been good. Some
And they
people,
write the recommendation letters. I like that.
and she does, like, whatever work she does it in a right way. She may be a little slow because there's a lot of people going to her, because she does good things. And she also takes cases where she is 100% sure that you can get EB2 or NIW or EB1A. So she's also very, like, in terms of, like, she'll let you know very honestly whether you can get this thing done or not. And
Other people are like Fregomen, that is another attorney, but they work with a lot of big giants like Intel, Microsoft, and they have a lot of cases. So they're very slow, and they don't really care too much about how to give the results, because I have friends who are working with them, and you have to write your own like recommendation letters. So the process, if you are going to work with them, gets really tardy. So I would definitely suggest the first ones, the vgreened.com people, the
and
check.
uh, and the whole I-140 process, like, when once I had the reviews and the citations and the papers published and everything, I think it took me about close to 8 months just to prepare the I-140 application and submit.
Yeah.
So that's why I said, like, even if you have everything with you, citations and everything, you still are going to spend about 6 to 8 months, because you have to contact recommendation. I would call people, like, where Shen said, like, okay, get from this person in China. I would call them and I would never get them. The student would pick up and say, oh, he's gone for lunch. He's not in the lab. I mean, I had to email a person in Europe during summer, and apparently those people don't work in summer. And I got a reply after like about 2 or 3 months that, okay, I can give you a recommendation letter. Some people in UK was like, okay, I'll give you a recommendation letter. But when he saw that the recommendation letter had like something like attorney and everything, he got scared and he said, I can't give you. So there are lots of these uncertainties that can happen, and it can give you like anxiety and frustration. For sure, it's going to go. So that's why I said, like, what I did was, when I was preparing, I would make a note of, like, who are the potential people who can give me a recommendation letter. It may be someone whom you met at at a conference. I had met a guy from Airbus at a conference, so he was ready to give me a recommendation letter. So make a note of all those things so that you will be ahead of others, and when the time comes, you just contact them and say, hey, can you give me a recommendation letter? If they agree, it's great. So, and that's how it works. And try to make sure that, since we are Indians, don't try to get a lot of Indian recommendation letters. So maybe one is fine, but try to have like a,
One is fine if nobody else is ready to
yeah,
give
yeah.
you.
Not everyone from the US as well. You have to have some kind of diversity in select. Let's say one from Europe, maybe one from Asia. Uh, some industries is also fine. See, even you can get a recommendation letter uh, from companies where you worked, but let's say you didn't were not at the same company at the same time, you can still get a recommendation letter. So you worked between 2018 and 2020, and somebody came there, after 2020, you left the company, you can get a recommendation letter from them. Or if somebody was there before till 2016, you didn't work, but they were from the same company, worked at different times, you can still get recommendation letters from them. So there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind, like, the most important thing is like, make a story about 3 projects that you have worked in your lifetime, which can impact US, like national security, energy security, greenhouse gas emissions, power management, anything can come under these things. Like, if you are an electrical engineer working on something, think about how your project is kind of like, the larger picture is like, is it impacting the US? Is it making US, the life of Americans better? Is it saving money for Americans or for the government or things like that? Is it improving the economy or any of those kind of things? You have to, that's how you make up a story. Uh, I know, Jabin, you had some questions when we started, or
Yeah, thank you so much. So I was pretty much like I wanted to ask about the more kind of attorney and lawyer, and I think Tripti covered that. The site, the vgreen.com.
yeah.
So it's pretty much like I have to evaluate my profile first if I'm taking it right.
See, evaluating yourself is one thing. I mean, that's the one of the mistakes that I did was like, I would go through vgreen.com back in 2014 when I was like doing PhD and said, okay, this is this. I need like citations, 100 plus citations, or some reviews and everything. I'll start working on it. The thing is like, probably attorney knows more because they would have worked. I mean, I'm not saying attorney knows everything technical about you and your work, but it's more like, they will go through your profile and say what is the probability. See, the thing is also, for example, I'll give you, when I was in Canada, that's the first time I contacted the attorney, right? So she said, okay, yeah, your citations are improving, blah blah blah. Maybe you have so many citations, we can apply. But then I thought, like, anyway, I'm going to go back to US and I'll do it. I wasted one almost 1 year of time. And then when I moved to US, I lived in Oregon. And Oregon, if you live, your application actually doesn't go to Texas, it goes to Nebraska. So EB1 Nebraska, they ask like 1,000 plus citations, 20 plus articles. So she was like scared. Like she said, like, Harish, it's going to be hard. And then I have to, like, when I got an offer from UA, then she was like, okay, since you have a UA, Alabama comes under Texas. So there's only 2 centers which processes your I-140. It's either Nebraska or Texas. Texas is pretty easy for EB1 I-140. So if you have like 10 plus papers, like, 100 plus citations, about 15, 20 reviews done, you can get EB1A. But in case you move to one of those states where you have to, like, for example, most of the states in Midwest and on the West Coast, they all send it Nebraska. So it's like, out of the 50 states, 25 send it to Texas, 25 cents to Nebraska. So all those 25 states which send to Texas are like Mississippi, Alabama. Tennessee goes to Nebraska, but Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, some of the East Coast, I think New York or New Jersey, one of them falls under Texas. So even those things come into to play. So you have to kind of, the best thing is like, contact Shen. There is a link where she is going to review it and say like, okay, this is what you need with your existing profile, and this is how you have to start working. So you will know like, okay, I have to work on my reviews, or I have to work on, getting something else done, so that you can start working towards it. So contacting Sheng at this time is not a problem at all. I think I would encourage you that, because if you want to keep her as an attorney.
Can you just give me the link or spell the name, please?
It is called vgreen.com. It is
Yeah, it's the
No.
same thing. The Shen lawyers are vegan.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's called the North America Immigration Law Group.
yeah, so what happens is like, they are going to, there is a link there which says like a free evaluation. You have to upload your resume and fill some information. They're going to email back to you in a couple of hours, like, maybe 24 to 48 hours with more questions. You keep answering them. So then they're going to come back and say, what are the options for you, and how they can work with you. Like, what do you have to do, kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, if you go to a company and the company says we have our own rules that we will apply for You can still pursue EB1A, but you might have to put all the money from your own pocket. But if the company wants to sponsor, they will pay the money for you, then you have to go with the company lawyers, not the Shen. Like, for example, if you are in UA and UA would like to sponsor your green card, UA has its own attorney and lawyers. They will work with you. But you can choose to say, I can work with Shen, but then you will not get any money from UA. Like the lawyer fee and everything has to be paid by yourself.
Yeah, but when you're working with your employer and they have their attorney, things are taken care. So you don't really worry about if everything is going right or no. It's only when you are doing it yourself and you have the fear that you might go wrong or you might make mistakes while drafting anything. That's the time you need the right kind of lawyers. And that's where the Chen lawyers are a good choice. But if you're working with employers and they have their own attorneys, you are in safe hands. They know what exactly needs to be done.
Yeah.
So does it like whether you go with the employer or you go by yourself, like the time it takes the same time, right? Or a different time?
It depends. I mean, if you go with an employer, the employer might not sponsor your green cards right away. So, for example, there was one with whom I had an interview. They said, like, we are not going to sponsor your green card for at least the first 3 years. But if you would like to go with anybody else outside, then we can. Uh, the speed at which they work, Shen probably, since you're paying out of your own money and she's probably going to respond to you much quicker because most of these in like company lawyers, they have so many things and you're just one of the 100 people that they are working with you. So maybe I think again it's with Shen I had relatively a good experience
Mhm.
in terms of like even how she can get the things done.
Okay.
See, the thing is, like, the important thing is if you are working on your own self petition, you can hire any lawyers, and right now you can start working with them, at this time. So if you pay any money to them, they're going to be there. It's not going to be like, oh, you paid the money this year, we are not going to work for you next year. They're going to work with you till your I140 is approved. So you might not even apply for the next 2 years, but you can pay the money and say, hey, let's start working on it, and they're going to work with you. So Shen is probably going to work. She's not going to say, she's not going to push you and say, get this thing done, get this. She's only going to answer you if you ask any questions. So that's how they work. But if you're going to do with a company, then you have to get into the company. First, your H1 has to be done, and then your visa has to be done. Then they are going to start. Your manager has to approve, your department has to approve, and then they're going to apply for the green card.
Yeah.
Hi, Harish and Trupti.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for all this information. It was really helpful. And I just want to inform about my case. And I contacted Shen Associates, and I informed about my about my profile, like publications of my 20 publications and more than 250 citations. And but review I have to do, like I have done only 3 till now. So for me, what they have informed is to apply simultaneously both EB1A and also EB2 NIW, both the categories simultaneously. And I mean, I just wanted to ask you guys, like, is it fine to apply for both at a time, or I can start initially with the NIW and then go to the EB1A category?
So, Rekha, this is something that Shen also offered me, and I see that she's offering to a lot of Indians. So, what happens is like she's going to do this. So, if you agreed for the NIW and EB1A, uh, she can use your existing profile. And as I mentioned in the presentation, that NIW also requires 3 out of the 10 criteria, but they are not rigorous as in EB1A. So the same person who is going through your criteria would say, okay, 4 or 3 reviews is good enough for NIW, but might not be good enough for EB1A. So what Shen will do is, if you say yes, she's going to work with you thinking you're, initially as EB to NIW. Now she's going to use the same recommendation letter, same people. When you sign up with her, And by the time she is going to submit EB to NIW to USCIS, it takes about 6 to 8 months. Let's say in that 8 months, you are able to get more citations and you're able to review more papers. Like, you can probably have the potential to review another 20 papers. Then you can contact her close to like 7 months when you're ready to submit and say, can you re-review my application? And if she thinks that, okay, Rekha, now you have, 50 or like 20 reviews done, you have more citations, you have published more papers, your profile is very strong for EB1A, she is not going to submit EB to NIW, but rather she's going to submit EB1A and she's only going to charge you for EB1A, not EB to NIW. But in case if your EB1A is not strong even after 8 months, she might say, let's apply for EB to NIW because we want you to get in the line. That is getting your priority date as early as possible. And then she might wait for another 6 months and then review your application and say, okay, now it is good. We'll sponsor your EB1A. I think the difference is about $1,000 or $1,500, which is actually, I think, like, when you're looking at like getting a priority date, it's a good investment. I really think that is a good investment. Go with that in NIW and EB1A because I know she charges $6,500, right, rather than
Yeah.
5.
6.5. She mentioned as 6.5 together.
Yeah, so she's not. You're going to probably only pay $2,500 now. But before she draws, I think there's one thing called as like once you get your recommendation letters and everything, and you send it to her, she will draft a letter, cover letter with everything like, this is so and so, Rekha has done so and so and so and so. Before she drafts that, you have to reevaluate your profile with her.
Okay.
And that's when, if she drafts it, then she's going to charge you $100,500. This is what I know from contacting her or interacting with her. But if she doesn't draft and right at that time she says, okay, Rekha, your citations has improved and things, then she's only going to charge you for EB1A and
Okay.
get 1,500.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Harish.
Okay. Anybody else has any other questions?
No, I think this is really helpful. I think that the session was a lot of information I got. I mean, it's really helpful to everyone, I think.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay. So I think we have clarified most of our questions and doubts, but we are open to any kind of questions you have for us, and we will work on the logistics on how to upload these two different videos in two parts or in one part, and see how that can be done in future so that you have a record of the information that we have shared on the in the session. So thank you very much for your time, guys, and thank you for the patience. Harish, thank you for the great work. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for people who came on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
But it's very much thanks from us because you has given a lot of insight for us, and it's a lot help to us
Yeah.
as applicants.
I just want to let you know that this is, as we told initially, that this is not like a legal advice. It's more about like what I have faced and Trupti has faced. And when you come as a student, and let's say 5 years down the lane, how things are going to be, we don't know, or how it's going to be next year, we don't know. But this is how it is now, and so that you can say, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to prepare for it. So
Yeah.
if that can help you out, and we are very happy for you guys.
Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys, for your time, and
you.
all the best.
All the best, and please feel free to contact us anytime if you have.
Yeah, Zabin, you can contact us anytime you need for any more information.
And Rekha,
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And also, I was like on a sideline. I was also thinking about if I want to go to Canada for and have a PR, because that process seems to be more simple than
Yeah.
here.
Harish can do another session on
Hmm.
PR for Canada.
And also one more thing I forgot to ask, do I need to evaluate like my degrees from back in India, like the masters and the bachelors I got back from India? Do I need to get the evaluation by WES?
Yes.
That is for Canada, but for US, you don't need.
Okay.
If your I-140 is approved, but if your spouse, let's assume, for example, in my case, I have a degree from US. That's a new requirement called I-944 from this year. Last year they have added, where we have to show that the family is educated so that they won't become a national burden or something like that. They call it. So we have to show. So my wife does not have any degree from US. So I had to get her all her master's degree, undergraduate and school evaluated from WS or equivalent in the US, which is recognized.
Yeah, don't even go to WS. I did it with J&W Associates. They gave it to me in like 48 hours.
Yeah, there are many. I mean, you can take care of it later on.
Yeah, but then you need
For,
transcripts.
yeah, but that's only for your spouse if they don't have a degree from the US, but not for you. For Canada,
Okay.
yes, you need. Canada,
Yeah, like I did for the Canada, but I was thinking like if I have to do the same procedure for here.
no,
Uh,
not for
no.
US, not right now. But if you're going for Canada, Canada has very specific requirements. Like again, Trupti helped me with that. I was in Oregon, and she was the one who actually collected the right, Trupti.
Yeah,
Sent it to
the
me. So
transcripts.
you have to get transcripts from UA. It has to be in from UA to the Canada, and all those things are there. So. Jabin, if you have any questions in terms of Canada, you can, we can meet sometime on campus. I can give you more information.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay,
It was
guys.
really very educational.
We appreciate your patience, Zabeen and Rekha.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking all till the end.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Okay,
Thanks.
bye.
Okay,
Have a
guys,
good
have a
day.
good weekend. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.